Hey guys, this is a Ragman task guide for So Good Part 2. For this task, we do have to hand over 2 different Gzhel armors, one with a durability between 0 and 50% and the other between 50 and 100%. So this task can be pretty annoying or difficult to complete because of the damaged armor, especially if you are a solo player. And lastly, an important thing to remember is to remove the plates from the armor before you do hand it over to Ragman, since they are not required to be in there, and you may as well save them for later use rather than just donating them to him for no benefit. So firstly, I will talk about all the ways that you can get your hands on this armor. So you can get a brand new one as a quest reward for completing the Ragman quest Dressed to Kill. Or once you do unlock Ragman level 3, then you can also barter up to 3 Gzhels per trader reset by handing over a golden neck chain and 2 of the Majeka coffee beans. Now you can also potentially loot it in your raids from a couple of different lootable containers, being from dead scavs, ground caches, 4x4 and 5x5 weapon boxes, and there is also a chance to loot a Gzhel from an airdrop crate if you do happen to get one in your raid that you can actually loot without being head eyes from a bush 100 meters away. But there is going to be 4 different types of crates, being common, medical, supply, and weapon, and you can find gear inside the common supply crates. Now BSG did recently make the Gzhels purchasable again off the Flea Market, so you can go ahead and buy them directly from there. And just so you guys know, to make your life easier, there is actually a filter that does allow you to adjust the durability to only show armors with 0 to 50%, but just know that Gzhels of any condition are normally quite expensive, but these pre-damaged ones take it to an entirely new level, since the experienced players do know that people will need them for this quest, and those same people know that some of us would rather just pay a premium than go through all the trouble of damaging the armor ourselves, especially if you don't have friends to expedite the process. But just know that you don't necessarily have to donate a kidney to get yourself a Gzhel for this task. They can actually be found in your raids, and you can also peel them off of a PMC that you do kill in raid, since it is typically going to be a fairly common armor at about the midway point of a wipe. Or some other options that you do have are that they will spawn on most of the boss guards like Gluhar, Kaban, Kolantai, Sanitar, and if you do happen to find them on these guys during your raids, then they will typically be pretty beat up on these guards, and you could even potentially even meet the 50% or less durability criteria for this quest right away. But just know that you won't end up finding them from the guards of Reshala, Sturman, or the cultists. And just so you guys know, sometimes Gzhels can actually spawn on player scavs, but I've only ever spawned in with one a handful of times myself, although I really don't play my scav very often the last few wipes, so I may not be the most accurate with that information. And just so you guys know, they also do not spawn on raiders or rogues. Now, if you do find or already have a Gzhel armor that is just not quite damaged enough, then there is a couple of ways that you can get it to meet the threshold, with the easiest method being to load into a raid with a buddy. And you want to make sure that you have your Gzhel equipped, and because friendly fire is always enabled, then you can have your teammate intentionally shoot you in the armor to decrease its durability until your armor does meet the requirements for the quest. And in the background, I do have a couple of clips where I am wearing a Zabralo and then my buddy is shooting me, so we are actually working on the following quest, which is So Good Part 3. Unfortunately, I didn't have any clips of myself wearing a Gzhel and then us also testing this, but I did just want to put up some examples for you guys because essentially it will be interchangeable regardless of the armor. And typically we would end up going to factory for this, since you almost always spawn close to an extract, but whatever map that you guys choose will be totally up to you. Now you guys can use any ammo that you want while doing this, however keep in mind that really good high pen ammo will likely damage the armor more per shot, but also injure your PMC more and also increase the risk of death, especially if you do have a trigger happy teammate, and it will also kind of be a waste of their good ammunition. And because with this good ammo, then you will have to make sure that you fully heal your thorax in between each shot. It will definitely slow down your progression to get this done. Now you guys are going to think that this sounds like a troll, but the safest and most consistent method for decreasing the armor durability is actually going to be using the toy gun, or most people do call it the Blicky. And this gun will fire discs, and it will have a magazine of 20 at a time, and each time that you do hit the armor with a disc, it will lower its durability by 1. And every 10 discs that do hit your armor, it will lower your thorax hit point by only 1 point. So this is by far going to be the most low risk consistent method to use for this quest. Now the drawback is that you cannot unload the magazine in raid, so you will have to bring in stacks of the 20 by 1mm discs, and then you will just have to top load the magazine when you do empty it over and over again until you do end up meeting the 50% threshold. So because the base armor with no armor plates does have a total of 154 health, that means that you will have to get it down to 76 or lower. So on a fresh Gzhel, that will be a total of 78 Blicky shots that you will have to fire, or if it is partially damaged, then you will have to do that math yourself. But on a new one, obviously this will be pretty time consuming, having to top load the mag at least 3 times, or you could always bring in just 4 preloaded Blickies. And this is by far going to be the most effective way, but I do realize that some of you guys are solo players, so I have added a couple of different ways in this guide to help you guys out as well, with the first one being that you can use the map border snipers and then run out of bounds to have them shoot you. And then you can either try to return back and reset the sniper's aggro to have them shoot you a few more times before dying or extracting, and this will decrease the armor's durability in a much more efficient way, or you can just go ahead and let them finish you off further out of bounds each time instead of trying to get back in hopes that nobody will find your body and then have insurance return it. But just know that from my quick testing, this was not going to be a fast process, and it may be best if you only need a few points taken off to qualify the armor for the task. And just a side note is that Therapist does have the fastest return time for insurance, so just make sure that you do switch to her before loading into the raid so that you will get them back faster. Now you can also go into a raid and find a quiet area of the map and underhand a grenade to yourself and then just go stand next to it or lie on it so that it will kill you. This will damage your armor, but again, you will have to wait for the insurance return, and then it could take 2, 3, maybe even 4 or 5 attempts, which is obviously going to be very time consuming and annoying. And then another side note for this option is that the M67 grenade is likely going to be the best option since it does have the longer fuse time, which will allow you to get positioned appropriately on the nade, and I believe it also does more armor damage total. Now, another option that I did see on Reddit, and probably the most promising one for a solo player, is to use the orange explosive canisters on a map like Customs, and then you do want to stand about 9 or 10 meters away and then shoot them, and then the blast radius will chip away and damage the armor. Now, even though they should not kill you, there is always the chance that it may, so definitely do this at your own risk. However, I did want to point out that I did bring in a Death Shadow Mask as an extra precaution for the explosion and shrapnel, but it was zeroed at the end of my testing in my raid. And while I was testing this, even though I did get quite injured sometimes, I'd never fully die from it. But I can definitely already feel the comments coming about how they stood the same place as I did, they shot the canisters the same way that I did, and they ended up being killed, and now it's my fault that they lost their Gzhel. But I just wanted to make it known that, guys, do this at your own risk. I'm not trying to lose anyone their armors. And if you are really nervous about this, then I recommend going into a practice or offline raid first to try and do this and then get the feel for it. Or you can also bring in a rangefinder like I did in this video to make sure that you are at least 9 meters away. And you also want to make sure that you definitely insure your armor with Therapist for this as well, and then hope that nobody finds your body if you do end up dying. But again, I am not trying to get anybody killed. I am just trying to find the most efficient way for you guys to get this task done. And if you guys do have any other methods to complete this task, feel free to leave them down below, as it may end up helping somebody else who is watching this video. And then when I do end up updating it in the future, then I can always add it to possibly help even more people. So hopefully you guys found this guide useful and it does help you to complete this task. Thank you guys for choosing to watch my guide on this, and hopefully I'll see you guys in the next one.